Hello folks, I'm Melly Little, and this is your daily TA wrap, where we take a look at these markets from a neoclassical perspective and ask ourselves what happened today and what does it tell us about tomorrow. I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the beautiful Rocky Mountains. Folks, I do a show every Sunday night. It's the weekly wrap. Last night, I have to apologize. We had a lot of internet issues, and that show really got interrupted about 5 times, I believe. And we finally just scrapped it. I did not re-record it. Just didn't have time. So, apologize for that. There is no weekly wrap, but basically, I'll give you a weekly wrap in 5 minutes. Let's look at it from this perspective. Pull this in. All right, Australia, new highs. India. If we can get India up, well, there's Belgium, new highs. India, new highs. Brazil, almost new highs. France, new highs. I mean, do I have to go much farther? Folks, it's all around the world. They love free money. Banks, free money everywhere from the world. Central banks, you know, it's the same story over and over. You keep pushing out enough money, and eventually somebody's going to do something with it. And so there's your weekly wrap. Actually, there was more to it than that, but you know, that's a good one. Let's look at the ending numbers. Dow down 7 points, 15,392. S&P's basically flat, 1744.5. The composite almost 5 3/4 higher, 3920. NDX 7 1/3 higher, 3361. And the Russell lost 2 1/4, 1112.5. So and then elsewhere it was pretty much flat. All was actually breaking down today. The dollar was flat. Not much happening elsewhere. If we look at what has transpired today, and let me pop over to those charts, you're going to see that even though, you know, it's been a straight up move, everything comes to an end, right? There's always little pullbacks here and there and so forth. Today we got a doji, you could call it a shooting star. It's also a 2-bar reversal. You go over yesterday's high, or actually Friday's high, you get back underneath it, you have less volume, you're after an extended move, and this, folks, is an extended move. That's going to get you some sort of a sideways to down action tomorrow on the S&P. Swing point high here, 1729.86. You would think it's going to try to come back into that area. You got a little gap up here as well that will probably be bought. I'm sure they will scream and kick all the way back down. The buyers will be there waiting to jump on stuff. But it is a reversal. You'll see some sort of action back to the downside, or at least sideways at best, more than likely. As a result of that, the Dow Jones couldn't even get up there. There was more volume on Friday. You had an inside day. Really nothing to talk about there, except for the fact that the Dow really isn't confirming the transports. But I wrote about that on the front page, and you know, the question was, is the whole Dow theory dead? And in some cases, it looks like it is. If we go over and look at the NASDAQ, the NDX, today we had Apple up huge. Friday we had Google up huge. That's what's driving this little baby. But notice you got another shooting star at the top on lighter volume here. You also have it on the NDX in the same context. And then if you go over and you look at the Russell actually did a 2-bar reversal as well. So we got a 2-bar reversal here. We got a 2-bar on the SPX. The Dow really doesn't count, in my mind right now until it plays out farther. Composite index shooting stars. Folks, this looks like pullback's coming. I told members about it, I don't know, it was 3 hours before the close today in the TNT room. Came on right at the end of the day. I told them one more time because then we could see what the print was going to be, so we could position correctly for tomorrow. We may get gap down in the morning, we may not. If we do, well, we're positioned. If we don't, then we'll see how we play out tomorrow. But more than likely, you're going to get some sort of a pullback off of this after all these extended moves. Now, the caveat, if there's a caveat, and usually there's something that's not quite correct, is that if we go to the sectors, they're not showing nearly as much weakness yet. IYT goes over the highs, is just pushing higher, less volume. That was a breakout on multiple time frames, so that one, actually it was only on this time frame, so it may push a little bit higher, but it's stretching here. And if I push over and look at the XLY, this thing also is exhausted up here. It's just barely hanging. You can see the same sort of case here that you see over in the IYT, and that it's pushed and it's pushed and it's pushed. Big long straight move up, exhausted. Can probably push a little bit more, but these look exhausted to me. If I go back to the semiconductors, we got the number out of Intel, then we got the number out of LLTC, we got another one out of Xilinx. A number of these chip stocks really not responding to earnings, maybe should I say. Tonight, Texas Instruments down fairly large, I believe. Let me go see what the numbers were it closed up at after hours. Texas Instruments down 2.5% today, 39.70. You're seeing it over and over in these tech stocks, and in particular the chips, yet that index keeps working higher, or that sector. Maybe it's a mystery. I don't know what it is, but it's kind of hard to keep this thing going up if one by one the larger players in the group keep falling. So Intel itself has come back, I have to say, even though it couldn't go up on earnings, it definitely has gone up since. But what I've said before, and I'll say it again, is that a lot of times what you're getting, and this is a large piece of that weighting, a lot of times what you're getting is you're getting spillover in the general buying, the basket buying that takes place into the large cap stocks. And so you get kind of the generals pulling everybody else up, even though all the troops aren't going, right? And as soon as that's over, you're going to see a big push back the other way, or a pull back the other way. Now, those things can go on a long time, but at some point they will matter. I'm looking at the stocks just to see what it looks like. It's a little more equal weighted. But yeah, those are still going up. If I look at the XLB, so IYT, XLY, XLB looks like it wants still to try to test that top. So those all looking the same. If I go over and look at the XLI, this one also is trying to test the top. And then of course the most powerful move that's out here is the XLK. Again, Apple up how much was it up today? Let me see here. Apple was up 17 bucks today, 3.5%. Weighting is about 22% of the NDX. I guess that's fairly obvious why the NDX went up today. And then the few that are starting to show reversals. XLE. Energy sector has been a power move. This one's showing a reversal today, 2-bar. XLF tests the top one more time. So it tests the highs again, fells again, and gives you a 2-bar reversal as well. So that's another sign. Now those two are the largest, two of the three largest weightings in the S&P, which should put pressure on that index. XLP, XLU, really nothing there, still range trading. So that's, in a nutshell, what's happening. Not as strong in terms of signals on the sectors, but definitely some decent signals on the indexes themselves. And I want to point it out again because I don't want to be misconstrued here. 2-bar reversals, when they're true, which these are true in the sense that they've done what they're supposed to, over and under, prior bars high, after an extended move. Those almost always lead to at least a sideways move, but many times to a downside move the next day. If I pop over to the OX markets, I want to look at 2 or 3 things here. I want to start with the bonds. These guys, the bonds themselves, they do look like they are going to test those swing point highs. And I'm hearing, things about, oh, the bonds are signaling that the stocks are going to crumble. Well, I don't know if I buy that. I mean, my goodness, they just sold off huge, right? All they're doing is coming back up. They're going to try to get back up here and test this retest regen on a higher level, but they're going to have heck getting up there, right? They got huge resistance in this area. What they're trying to do right now is simply get back to the top of the weekly bar from August 19th. And if we come back over here, if you do pop the top here on these highs, I suspect you're going to get back up there. That price point on the August 12th week, that price point's 107. We're trading today at 106. This high is the 107.63. That if it gets over that and pushes through that, then if I go back over here to the weekly one more time, that would give you enough. Pushing over this would give you enough to get into these 2 big bars. That's the next big beef. So that's 108.37, and the next one's 107.76. So not very much room after that. But anytime you get that kind of a sell-off, going back up, you're going to have major resistance, right? A lot of supply, that's what resistance is, at higher prices. In other words, sellers are going to come out of the woodwork and get rid of stuff. And I expect that will be true here. Bonds are just bouncing, nothing more. And so this whole story about somehow this is telling us the market's going to crater, that's a bunch of nonsense in my opinion. So that's the bonds. I wanted to look at gold and silver. Last Thursday, gold got a big spike up, consolidating the gap up move. It's not even pulling back, folks. This thing's going to work its way up here to the top of the range. This big wide price spread bar, usually when you see those kind of bars print, they will control price for the most part for a long time to come. And this one's no different. Now, it did get underneath it, tested on the weekly deeper. If I bring it over to the weekly deeper, test it into here, actually got into it pretty deep. And usually if you stay in it within a couple bars, you can go to the back side of it. Well, in this particular case, you didn't get that, right? It tried to get into it, stayed 1 bar, flipped right back out. Now that's not, it's not the greatest scenario to be trying to buy, but this thing looks like it's going to bounce to me. Gold stocks, gold itself. And if I look at silver itself, silver's doing the same thing and actually more stronger. And we've seen that before on silver. So here's the silver. Let's get silver up here. Here we go. You can see it's stronger here. Are we getting all kind of calls? What kind of calls are we getting here? Who wants me? I don't know. But you can see silver stronger. If you want to call me, folks, don't call me. You want to talk to me? Send me a chat room message, as I see some over here, as we always get. Send me email. Send me text messages. All of those. Don't call me. I'm not going to answer the phone, right? So you can send your text messages here. You can send your email there, or you can pop into the live stream chat room. If you get a login, right, then you can type into the chat room and you can ask me questions there. I'd be more than happy to answer them. Always answer them as best I can. So what we got? One more thing I want to talk about. USO, oil. I've been talking the last two or three sessions, maybe 4 or 5. I've been talking about oil consolidating here to break down. It tried to break down here, right? Pushed down under that swing point low, got under it, had some volume, right? Popped back up, did a quick retest regen. Today, gaps down. I believe it actually gapped. I don't think it closed it. 36.31, yeah, it held the gap down off of that prior close bar. Gaps down. Okay, so now this thing is coming into, finally, it's coming back in here to try to do the retest regen off of this high. That high is 35.53. If it gets into that bar, which it looks to me like it's going to, it's just a few 30 cents more. More than likely, you're going to see it get to the bottom of that bar and into the top of this one. That's where it's going to find some support on the first bounce. That was the breakout bar. That's where the volume sits. The bottom of that guy is 34.46. This high is 34.86. That bottom's 34.57. So you can see how that area correlates as a place that you have to expect the buyers to come in. I've been advising members to short this market. If they have shorted it, that's the area that you want to be looking at. Now that we've got some nice profits in our pockets here, we can afford to let it try to get down there. Let's see, I think those were the main things tonight. Dollar really didn't do anything. Last night I talked a little bit about the dollar in the other markets. The British pound, for example, you're seeing consolidation here. You're seeing it in the Swiss franc. You're seeing it in the euro. All of these are doing the same thing. They're all going to come up here and try to test their swing point highs on the weeklies. So each of those markets are suggesting that the dollar is going to work lower still. And if we look at the dollar itself, you can see that all it did today was come back up and try to retest, regen off of this low. And so far, that looks like exactly what it's going to do. Going to try to push back to the downside. All right, let me pop over here and see what kind of questions. Fred is busy, so let's see what Fred's got on his agenda here. So, good evening, LA. Really appreciate the balance and structure you provide and would not feel comfortable without it. Well, that's good. I'm doing some high-risk investing and with a smaller portion of my money. He bought Netflix today before earnings, I assume. And Fred, I think, does options quite a bit, so he's probably doing some options. I know he made some really good money on another pick we had. So let's pop in here and see Netflix. So Netflix was up big. Actually, it was up big today and on earnings. And Netflix is one of those stories of, a story stock. I'm going to pull this all the way over to the monthly here. A story stock that had a huge run and then caved in. I mean, this stock went from 304 all the way down to a low of, what, about 80? No, 53. Oh, my God. Even worse than I thought. 304 down to 53. And now it's breaking out on the monthly. Back over it. With today, big breakout. You're breaking out on multiple time frames. If you consider the monthly breakout as well. And big spike up today, breakout, volume expands. Let me pull this back over to the daily and then let's look at the rest of Fred's question. So the question was, bought Netflix, paid off, how far do you see it going tomorrow? Well, let's get a feel for it by just looking at how far it went tonight, because this thing was up big. 92 bucks is where it closed. Is that really right? I'm not looking at the right thing. 394, excuse me. 61 bucks higher, 18%. That's a move. That is a move. So let me see. Today's close was 355. Well, I think we need to try to find something to measure with. So you have a measure here and it's already finished it. So that one's not going to do you any good. Let's go back over here. Okay, so you do have a measure here. So if we take, you finished off that ABCD, so you had a lower low here. You see 24, 23.9. So it'd be 239, so roughly 240. 240 up to 334. So that's 96 bucks. Take 96 and plop it on to 282 for a rough number. So just call it 100. That would be 382 minus 4 would be 374. Am I getting that right? And it's trading at 394. So you know, I'm struggling here, Fred, because this thing is already over. I'm going back to my monthly to try to find something. So if we go here, yeah, actually you got another number from here. This is your, oh my gosh, this is huge. Hang on and let me pop up a different window for myself and do a calculation for you. So what I'm going to do is, because the percentages are important now when you're calculating and the numbers are this big, so I'm just going to pop it into my percentage numbers and look at it there. So let me go back over here. That bottom is 5305, and then we've got a B point at 248.85. Good Lord. Let me see, low 204, 205. That doesn't even give you. You don't even have the reason. Well, we'll count this one, but it's not really an ABCD structure. We'll just use it as a guesstimate. And that projects, even that one projects to 961. So Fred, it's over all of them. So now it's just all momentum. You know, with what you've done here, I would put some money in my pocket on the spike tomorrow, and then let the rest of it ride for a little bit and see how far it wants to go. Okay, so that's the only way I can play it. There's no projections now. It's over them all where it closed tonight. Yeah, and actually this is a good point. And let me bring up a different chart to show you how to do this. This is a very good point here. And the question Fred's asking is, okay, if you can't get a projection, how do you know when to sell? You know when to sell when you get this kind of a move. Look at the way this chart played out. Big, long, straight spike up, right? And that's what you have on your weekly, but you don't have it on the daily on your Netflix. Then you get huge volume expansion, right? And I expect this is going to happen on your weekly, Fred, is where you want to watch it. When you get that huge expansion and it can't hold the highs, that bar is going to set up just like I was talking about before with the gold bar. That wide price spread, high volume bar is going to contain prices for quite a while. Usually it will contain them for another 15, 20 bars at least. And if you're on the weekly, that's 15, 20 weeks. So when you get that kind of a spike, you're going to want to try to take the rest of that money. That is how you figure out, or that's how you find where to take your money at. So let me see, Tommy. It would seem we wouldn't get far on the SPX lower. Do you think 1725 is the area to hold first time down? I think anywhere from 1724 to 30 is the answer, Tommy. Fred, yes, 395 now after hours. Hey, LA, can you take a look at SCTY? Let's see what this one looks like. And let me pop it in here so I can get all time frames. And folks, if you haven't checked to see when earnings are, clearly Fred knew where his was. But if you haven't checked to see where earnings are, I'm not looking at your earnings for you here on these charts when I look at them. I'm just giving you a technical read, absence of earnings. Okay, so this is Solar City. This guy spiked up. Okay, now the solar stocks in general have been hot, right? All of them have, and they've been hot for a while. This is, if I remember right, this is a Chinese play. I'd have to pull it up to see for sure, but so you spike over it, you have volume. Okay, so that's still okay as long as it doesn't do a 2-bar reversal on the weekly. You get over back under higher volume here. You've had an extended move. You know, this is getting towards the end of the rope. It's gonna, you know, today's candle is not a good candle, but it will probably try to test it again tomorrow. If you get lighter volume, 2-bar reversal, you want to stay out of the way and let it retrace. I would not be buying this one here. It's just a little bit too late. Where you want to buy it is on the retrace. Where's that retrace? Well, you can't see it here. You got to go back to your weekly. That retest region will come back into this high. That top is 52.77. Let's see what that lines up with over here. 52.77. Yeah, it's not a bad number. Right about there, right at the bottom of that support zone that you see drawn in right there. That's the first spot. So 52.77. Now realize a retest regen can take you all the way back to the bottom of the bar that you're retesting. That bar at the bottom is 40.28, and 40.28, if we go back to the daily again, 40.28 would take you back to, wow, all the way back down to here. So if you're going to play it, you got to buy it in here. You got to put your stop pretty tight. You can't give it a lot of room, because if it starts moving, I wouldn't let it get past this bar's top, 48.13. That would be the most I'd give it. Okay, so the buy-in 40. Yeah, actually that. Well, I did that wrong. Didn't I say 47 on that bar? I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong number. 52 on the weekly. I'm looking at 47. Yeah, I still like that number. Right in there, 52.65. And you got to get a lot of room though, because it can come easily back to 48. So that's $4. This is one where you got to put less money. You got to average in if you're going to do that. So, these stocks that move a lot, they're just going to have you're going to have to give them more room. At the same time, you don't want to give them too much room. But if you buy in here, you either got to keep a close stop, which means your probability of success is a lot lower. Or you got to give it enough room, which means you don't want to buy it all there. You want to be able to buy some lower. So you can do it either way. Your probabilities are greater on this second form of the trade. But then again, that's your call as to how you play it. Let me see here. Fred says thank you, basically. Tommy, seems like XLF and XLE is where to buy on the retrace. Would I agree? I think XLE is, but where I think XLE, not so much XLE, but where energy probably is the best trade is not on the XLE itself, but a version of that. And the reason I'm saying this is I suspect what you're going to see, if in fact oil starts to drop, is you're going to see the big oil companies take a hit, which is XLE, right? That's what's mostly in there. You've got some drillers like Schlumberger and so forth, but if you look at the OIH, which is your drillers, they'll get hit too, but not as bad. The ones that are going to do the best are probably going to be the refiners, right? So you probably want to go look at the refiners to see what they look like. So if I were searching for in the energy sector, I would probably go look at refiners. Some of those names we've seen in the past do really well. I'm trying to think of some of them, like TSRO, I think is one of them if I'm remembering right. PSX was another one. Looks like I'm having a hard time getting my charts to come up right now. Let me pop to a different charting system. So if I go to TSRO, for example, I believe this one, Tesoro, yeah, this is one. That's not a great looking chart. How about PSX? Yeah, see there's one that's doing it, Phillips 66, right? This has got a big refining component to it. So on a pullback, I would probably be going to look at the refiners, because they're the ones, the crack spreads are going to close, right? And it's going to allow these refiners to make more money. I think one of the reasons you've seen the refiners do what they've done with this sideways stuff is that their margins got squeezed so much with oil going higher and higher, right, and gasoline prices not. So when they're refining that oil to gas, they're not making as much on their margins, and that was what was keeping them back. Now you're starting to see them spike up. So that's where I'd look there. Tommy, so that was Tommy's. XLF, I don't know. XLF has been the weakest one. I'd probably look at tech on the way back. This is where the strength has been, right? XLK. So, some sort of a pullback into here. This is probably the one I'd really be looking at. So anyway, that would be, yeah, and Tommy says tech. PSX, yes, that's the one I mentioned. So those are the ideas I'd throw out there at you. Hey folks, time's up here. I'm gonna have to call it a day. I appreciate you tuning in. Tell a friend, tell two. As always, I'm here to help you. I'm L.A. Little. this is and was your daily TA wrap. Have yourself a great night, and I'll catch you on the next one next time. Take care, folks. Good night.